I'd like to thank everybody for joining me today. As we approach the year end, I think it's a good time to focus on planning so that we can kick off the new year with the goal to get our planning done. As we look at our planning, I always look at planning as a continuum. It's not just for a certain period in time, but it's for today and carries us through, through the rest of our life. So think about planning. It's for today and tomorrow. But as we look at planning, we've got to make sure that planning takes care of you. It's not just, hey, let's plan on how to give everything away, but let's take care of you. So we're starting today with you and carrying that throughout your lifetime and as it distributes onto your heirs. When you look at planning, really, why should we plan? And I like looking at planning as completing a puzzle, but we have to know what puzzle pieces that we're going to be looking at. So it could be the estate and legacy piece. When you think about your estate and legacy, what do you want to be remembered for? What do you want to pass on to your heirs and both monetary and non-monetary types of items? And so think about legacy. It's more than just the property. It's more than just, dollars. It's making sure that the legacy that you want to pass on passes on. When we're looking at planning, we could be starting with the business. There's things that happen in the business that need to be taken care of, whether it's taking care of employees today, transition plans for the future, retaining key employees, putting in retirement plans. All of these issues come in that need to have planning. It's not just go and pick it up off the shelf and implement it, but make sure it works. When we look at the piece for retirement, I like to add in retirement and long-term care. None of us want to look at our retirement years um, with needing long-term care, but we know statistically that's going to happen to the majority of us. And so we have to plan. Let's don't bury our head in the sand and hope it doesn't happen. Let's plan and make sure that if it does happen, it's accounted for. And finally, that what if. Anytime you're planning, we've got to create as much flexibility in this plan as possible so that as we're moving through the years, we can adjust and make sure that plan works, especially for those what if things that pop up. The best laid plans are going to change because of reality. And having that all put together makes sense. And the final piece is making sure this is your plan, that as we pull this whole plan together, the focus has to start with you, and then we go out from there and add these puzzle pieces together to make sure your whole plan fits for you today and make sure that can carry forward, throughout the years. When I look at planning, and part of this planning is how do we allocate your resources? And if you look at the allocation of resources, how would we plan if there wasn't any cap on the amount of money that could be spent? Well, that opens up a whole world of planning opportunities. But we know we've got to make sure we're allocating our resources to get the best plan we can for you. To do this, I like to categorize the assets. What assets are we going to use today? Think about this, as you have your salary, as you have income from your business, if you have income coming in from your investments. How are they going to be used? And we're going to consume a lot of those assets. So as you look at this and as you're planning, let's make sure we start with how much of these assets need to be allocated for use today to get us, today all the way to our retirement years. So much of the planning that I see out here focuses just on retirement. Forego everything today to build for retirement. Build, build, build. Well, if you're building a business, we need to utilize those assets today. If you are looking at want to take a trip around the world, great. Let's make sure that plan is allocated correctly and that we know those assets are going to be used now. When we look at our retirement years, We want to make sure as we build for retirement, we're allocating those resources. We want to look at, are we looking at, guaranteed income in retirement? Are we looking for a set amount of retirement money? Whatever it is that you want to build into that plan, let's start building that into the plan. You can use um, annuities that have guaranteed lifetime income riders, that it acts just like a pension. You build that annuity up. Once you turn on that lifetime income, it's like turning on a pension. That amount doesn't change. It will carry through as long as you're breathing. Or you can allocate more to your investment portfolio, so you've got a bigger amount building there, and you take the money out and spend it as needed. When I look at the retirement planning, make sure you account for what you need, what you want, and what if. On top of that is, let's make sure we've accounted for long-term care, because that long-term care piece, just like I just said earlier, we're all going to face some kind of a care need. And most of the care, the money from care comes from our retirement bucket. And if I'm working with spouses and the first one needs long-term care, is that going to basically eat up and consume all of the retirement assets, and the surviving spouse after that long-term care event is left destitute with nothing to live on? So we want to make sure as we plan accordingly. Finally, what's going to others? Now, I think a lot of times when we talk estate planning, people jump to the going to others bucket. They start thinking, okay, how am I going to allocate all of this to my kids or my grandkids? Well, we've got to take these buckets in order to make sure we've taken care of you today to retirement. We're taking care of you with enough through retirement. And if there's anything left, assets, income, whatever, that is going to go to somebody else. And who do you want that to go to? Is it to family? Is it extended family? Is it friends? Is it charity? All of those what if scenarios of who that can go to really come back to, there again, the puzzle pieces. What do you want to have happen to your resources? Where do you want to allocate those assets after you pass? And who should it go to? How should it go to them? You can either give it to them outright. You can put it in trust, that the trust manages that over their lifetime and controls their spending and protects them from their creditors. So there's a lot of ways we can pass that on. How much do you want to decide now? How much do you want to leave up to them as they receive that money? So there's a lot of choices. When you look at planning, always look at the tools and strategies as tools in the toolbox. And if you look in the toolbox, and this is not an exhaustive list, but it's just a list of a lot of potential tools. When we're getting into the planning, there again, back to the puzzle pieces. Let's figure out what puzzle pieces we need for you, what you want to have accomplished. Then once we have the goals and objectives figured out, we understand what assets we're working with, then we open up the toolbox of strategies and we start pulling these out. Okay, do we need some life insurance? Do we need a revocable living trust? Do we need an irrevocable trust? Do we need an LLC to, protect our investments? All of these are just tools to help you accomplish your goals. And one tool is not more important than the other. They each have a place, they each have a specific objective, and all of these tools have to integrate to make sure your plan works for you. As we go through the planning, I do get this question, quite a bit. When should I start? And the real answer is today. If you put it off, you put it off, you put it off, now you may have waited too long. But as we go into this new year, make a New Year's resolution to get your planning done or get your planning reviewed to make sure it's up to date with your goals and objectives. So it's really, let's get started. Let's make sure the planning's done, make sure your puzzle is complete and everything's done the way you want it. I appreciate everybody getting on. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. If not, we'll talk again next week. Thank you.